Hey everyone, welcome to the first live stream for Evergreen Pathways. My name is Vicki Bruns. I'm going to be here talking and moderating through this amazing panel of established leaders at Evergreen. So we've got Ramsey, Sydney, and Craig joining us today. How's everybody doing? How you feeling?
Can't wait.
Excited
for
Can't
this.
wait. All right, awesome. So, okay, we've got a lot to get into. We're going to be here for 30 minutes, folks. Make sure if you have any questions, leverage the Q&A on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we're going to go around the room. I want to get kind of your takes on where we're headed, what's happening with Evergreen. So, Ramsey, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about what the mission, what the vision, what's the essence of Evergreen?
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of history for those that aren't familiar. I co-founded Evergreen 8 years ago with Jeff Totten, and the kind of story is we were very inspired by Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett's holding company, and they're widely seen as the best home for businesses, but they only buy really large companies. And really the two things that make Berkshire unique that we have implemented at Evergreen are decentralization. So if you look at the companies that Berkshire buys, they operate independently and they keep their brand. There's a CEO running each business that has full autonomy to run that business. And then the second thing is a long-term mindset and holding their businesses indefinitely. So Berkshire has owned many companies since the 1970s, so 50 years, and that's just kind of unheard of in the world of buying businesses. So we have tried to apply that model to the MSP industry over the last 8 years. And if you fast forward to today, we've acquired 155 companies now, so over 150 business owners have trusted Evergreen to be a home for their business, and it's working. And the way I kind of gauge whether it's working, there are kind of two things I look at: are people that sold to us happy, and we measure seller NPS and
Net Promoter Score.
Yeah, Net Promoter Score, and on a scale of negative 100 to positive 100, as Craig always likes to remind me, it was a 94. So really proud of that. So people are happy when they sell their business to us, and then the other way I gauge it is our performance. So are our businesses growing organically after we buy them? And the answer is yes. We're achieving organic growth, well in excess of the industry. So yeah, that's kind of the background on Evergreen. And ultimately, if you zoom way out, our mission is to be the best home for businesses and their leaders. We're trying to apply that to the MSP space.
Okay. Well, and you founded the company in 2017. So, I mean, Evergreen's been around for quite some time, if you think about it. So why now? Why are we starting this series called Pathways? Why are we going to be showing up on stages more in 2026 around the community? What was the catalyst for that?
Yeah, I think there are really two things that I would emphasize there. The first is I mentioned the two founding principles of Evergreen around decentralization and hold forever. The third one that emerged over time is we've actually gotten really good at creating value in the businesses we acquire and helping them grow faster than they would otherwise. And that we didn't have that muscle in the early days of Evergreen, but as we've gotten to know the business and worked with some of the best leaders in this industry, we've developed a real competency and playbook around helping businesses grow, and we want to share that with the community. And then the second thing I would say is we talk to a lot of MSPs every year, every week, really, and almost across the board, their businesses aren't worth what they want them to be worth. So there's this gap between what somebody wants to eventually exit their business for and where their business currently is. And so to the extent that we can help them grow their business and give them tactical guidance on some levers to pull to grow their business, it benefits us because they're more likely to sell the business, and it benefits them because they can sell their business for more money when that time comes, and ultimately make more profits in the meantime. So those are kind of the two things I'd highlight as far as why we're really leaning into um, and educate the community on value creation.
Perfect. Okay. And I think this dovetails perfectly into Craig Fulton. You are an industry veteran. You've been in this space for a while. And I know education is something that you're really passionate about. So can you tell us a little bit about like what you see are, some takeaways, some of the themes, educational content that we can put forth?
Yeah, it's exciting we're doing this. It's something we've talked about. There's a lot of content out there, right? This isn't 2010 anymore where there's a few people speaking and it's pretty easy to hone in on who you want to listen to. There's a lot. And I've been in IT for 30 years. I got my first certification in Novell in 95. And, I spent a decade just being a tech, like a lot of business owners are. And I feel I understand that mindset of being a technical business owner. You tend to solve problems from the technical aspect, and that's okay. But I think there's a maturity that's been happening now that there's a lot of money coming in the industry, a lot of investors, companies like Evergreen doing acquisitions. I want to make sure the people that have busted their butts building great businesses get big paydays. I say this all the time. Like, people joke like, man, Craig is constantly saying he wants to send us giant checks and get us millions of dollars. I do.
And have you sent one of those giant checks yet?
No, I'm tempted. If you're listening to this and we end up having a call one day, be careful because I'm going to send it to their spouse, right? Because that's probably the person that should be forcing the person to make this decision. That's a joke. But it might happen. I don't know. We'll see. You never know.
Take the call.
But I'm excited to do this because, look, I did spend about 10 years at one of the major vendors in our industry doing a lot of presenting. I helped a lot of people through operational content mature their business as a managed service provider so that they're building recurring revenue, predictable revenue streams, building a great business, growing. And that was exciting. I want to get back to doing that. I've learned so much along the way from this community. I want to make sure people are getting the actionable takeaways. Like, okay, here's why you should do something. There's a lot of that, right? Here's why. There's a lot of what. But I feel like the how has been lacking, right? We want to get more prescriptive. Like, this is how we do it. So this year in Pathways, we're going to bring our leaders in and other leaders we see in the industry with proven results in growing their business, meaningful value, right? Value creation. Maybe we'll see Ramsey's value creation bus as we're along the way. And he's your bus coach, and he's going to take you on an epic adventure to millions of dollars and a giant check. But we want to bring people on that have proven results, and they're going to tell you how they do it. The prescriptive part has been lacking, and I'm excited that we're going to bring that. So we're going to take you on a journey. There is a pathway. So let's go on a little journey through there. We're going to bring founders on, hear their stories of legacy, right? Stories are really what inspire and motivates us to change. Because it really, at the end of the day, what is content doing? You're doing something in your business, you're doing behavior A. And when you sit through something, you should leave doing behavior B, right? An improved behavior. And hearing stories is really what inspires people. And so we're going to hear from our founders. We're going to get into leadership techniques, business development of people, because these are service businesses after all, and it's people. Operational excellence, and really rounding it out with, here's the data. We talk about data all the time, data-driven decisions, data insights, and there's more data than ever, and weeding through that. We're going to get to all that. We're going to, again, the why, the what, the how. And the last thing I'll say, and most exciting thing, this year we launched a community-driven event called Elevate. We did it in March in Austin, Texas. Just did it 2 months ago in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. And we're bringing it in April 13th and 14th to Chicago, a small, intimate group, nothing big, but free to attend. We really want to invest in this community, give back what we've learned. We want to see businesses grow, whether you sell to us or you don't. We do need this industry thriving, and you're going to hear from our leaders at this event. So it's free to attend. And I think what's great too is we don't have any sponsors there, so you're not going to get sales pitches. We're going to be focused on value creation. Ramsey, bring a bus. Maybe we'll bring Ramsey's creation bus. But importantly, Vicky's going to put a link to this. It's the 13th and 14th in Chicago with an optional day on the 15th to get some one-on-one free business coaching, advice, guidance, so that you leave this event with actionable takeaways, like things you can implement. And you're going to be networking with some great business leaders there, building new relationships. Excited to bring it to Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities in the States.
Where else is Elevate going to be showing up next year?
Yeah. So in August, date is TBD. We're going to be in London, and then in October, and that's in the UK. Not London, Ontario. There is a London, Ontario.
I found that out last week, actually. I did not know that.
Yeah. I know. I was talking to someone there, London, and I'm telling them, oh, man, the trains and tubes and all that. They're like, what? I'm like, wait, where are you talking? I thought it would be known. So I always clarify with the state and the country. And then we'll be in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, not Melbourne, Florida. There was confusion on that this year as well. I was getting Americans signed up. I'm like, man, you're flying all the way there? They're like, no, I'm driving down the road. I'm like, must be a new bridge across the Pacific Ocean. So anyway, we're excited, man. And again, we're not trying to build some giant conference series. We want to build a community of people that are focused on value creation.
Perfect. Awesome. So we talked a little bit about what we're excited about. We're talking about leveraging that kind of go-giver mentality of bringing education to the forefront through our events, through our virtual live stream series. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's happened this year. Sydney, I would love to hear your take on what you've been seeing, what you've been experiencing while talking to so many MSPs about selling their business.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you that don't know, Sydney, I can oversee all of our MSP M&A, and I spend the majority of my time on the road talking to business owners, going to conferences, sitting on councils, it's been a big year for that. I think back to the events early in this year, and it feels like a lifetime ago. I feel like this industry is changing so fast, but in a really exciting way. I think there's really been two pervasive themes that aren't surprising. They're the things we're talking about, all the time, and they're kind of the headline of every event. The first being AI, and that's a really big theme. And I think there's still a lot of questions around what does that mean? How is that going to change this space? And there's a lot of kind of very high level forward thinking thought about how the industry is going to transform, and the idea of kind of agentic AI and how that's going to change what an MSP does. But I think what I'm feeling from a lot of owners is kind of missing the interim step of the basics. What are we actually doing in our businesses today? What are the first steps to get to that new transformative world? And I really think I was having a conversation last week with a number of other MSP leaders is the first step is really the evolution of the service offering. So rather than being kind of a reactive ticket cruncher and kind of just a tech provider, really being a strategic technology advisor to your customers, which sounds a little nuanced, but using technology to drive the strategy of their business and being that go-to trusted advisor on how they're going to do that. And I think that is how AI automation comes into the picture. It happens internally at MSPs, but also at clients. And as I think about our businesses, we've got a couple of businesses in Australia and New Zealand that are, really far along on doing business process automation with their customers and growing organically a ton through this. And some really real world examples. We've got some businesses in the US that have built out pretty significant training platforms, reselling and using HATS AI, a lot of really interesting things that are happening in various different ways across our portfolio. These are people we're going to eventually bring onto this. And again, to what Craig said, talk about real world examples. How do you build this today, make your business better? So I think that's one theme. And I think really what I would love to see more of next year across the space is a little bit more of the tactical how do we get to this future state we spent a lot of time talking about this year. And then the second is an age-old topic of M&A, but it just keeps getting busier and busier. There's more transactions happening across the MSP space than ever before. And I think objectively, that's a great thing. It's an amazing industry. The business is an amazing, value prop. And I think investors only continue to realize that same way that we have, we're more excited about the space now than we were 8 years ago. But I think what you're starting to see is really a separation between the aggregators that are growing organically and the ones that are not. Everybody can grow through inorganic growth, meaning you acquire more businesses, but how are you actually growing the underlying business, whether it be more of a roll-up model or a more decentralized model? Like what is your actual new logo generation, your existing client growth look like? And I think what I often hear is that a lot of independent MSPs wonder how they can compete with these big players. There's a ton of different aggregators out there. And, is the small independent MSP just falling by the wayside? But the reality is that independent MSPs are growing faster than large aggregators. It's why we really believe in decentralization and leaving independent businesses separate. The local growth engines, the businesses are more nimble. They can react to changing customer needs. They understand the local community they're serving, different customer bases. And so I would encourage, independent businesses to continue to focus on that organic growth, because you can do it faster than, a large aggregator can. And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. And then the other piece would be to talk to buyers about what their organic growth strategy is. What is that going to look like once you sell? How do they think about taking that to the next level for their whole platform, but also for your business?
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. It's like they're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, right?
Diligence goes both ways. And I think it's really important. I've said this a lot, but as you start having conversations, whether or not you're looking to sell in the near term, like what do you want? What's important to you, both personally around role and finances, but what you want for the future of your business, and then do your diligence on the buyers too.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, thank you all for that content and that context. That's super helpful. I think now what I would love to do is kind of dig into Q&A. We'll do a couple quick hits here. And oh, by the way, we're also getting some comments that are coming in too. So we'll get to those in a minute. But Ramsey, let's go ahead and start out with you. We're hearing that sellers are also considering acquiring other companies to increase their potential valuation before they consider a sale, right? So what's your advice to an MSP leader who's considering that move?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something we hear a lot. Oftentimes my initial reaction is don't do it. I think the nuanced answer to that is don't do it unless you have an organic growth engine that's driving your business. Oftentimes I hear people, they feel like they can't grow their business organically. So let's try this other form of growth, which is buying a company. And that is not the reason you want to do M&A. The reason you want to do M&A is if you have a good organic growth playbook and you want to grow faster, you want to supplement that with M&A. So I think that's the first thing. Like if you're not growing your business double digits organically on the top and bottom line consistently, don't worry about that before you buy a company, because buying a company is hard, it's expensive, it's distracting. And it's riskier than the business that you own and know. So I think that's the first thing. So if you get over that and you have an organic growth engine and you want to grow faster and you want to buy a company, or you get an opportunity to buy a local competitor, my other piece of advice is pay up for quality due diligence. I think we do really good due diligence, not because we're that smart, but because somebody taught us years ago that when you're buying a company, you should have a accountant come in and review the financials to make sure that they're being accurately portrayed to you. You should have a good lawyer that can make sure, you have the right non-competes in place and the right protections in place. You should engage a firm to do a customer health survey so that you know if the customers are happy or if they're all going to leave the day after you buy the company. And those are the three things I just mentioned are kind of the core tenets of due diligence. But I find most MSP owners that buy companies don't do any of those things. They meet with the owner. They feel like they've got a good relationship. They review the financials and they do the deal, and they just get totally screwed. And they lose a lot of customers. It becomes a real headache. And again, it's not because like they're not smart enough to do an acquisition. It's just because nobody ever taught them, hey, here are the due diligence steps you should take to ensure you're buying a stable company. So that would be my piece of advice. If you do look to acquire a company, it's going to be expensive to hire that accountant. It's going to be expensive to hire that lawyer. But don't cut corners on that. It'll save you a lot more money.
Gotcha. That's good. That's good advice. And by the way, so Nellie Scott is joining us here. Hey, Nellie. I know Nellie from the CompTIA days. So she says what customers want is for their vendors to bring them information they don't already know, and that's value. Okay, and I think you all alluded to that as well in terms of the value that we're going to be hopefully bringing and next year. So let's go ahead and go to Sydney next. So Sydney, when we talk to a lot of these leaders and they're considering a sale, if it's not right now, the next answer, and Craig loves this one, it's usually 3 to 5 years, right? Why is 3 to 5 years the magic number? And what do you say to sellers that are considering that time window?
I think 3 to 5 years is enough time for them to get us off their backs and to think a little bit. And, we won't follow up in 6 months. It might be a year. No, I think I often hear 3 to 5 years when it's, hey, this isn't a decade away, but it's not tomorrow. And so, what is the time frame that's appropriate for getting to the value that I want to get to, and thinking through all the decisions I need to think through, which is completely fair. I find that it usually ends up being sooner than that. I think the piece that gets missing is people say 3 to 5 years and they think the business is going to be X by then, but it doesn't get there. And so, what we've been talking about this whole time, and the point of this series and Elevate is to help people build that value. I think some of the things that I would call out to really focus on for folks is, we've talked about the growth engine, and this is by no means an easy thing to do. Getting the right salespeople in place is hard. It's expensive, but it is so worthwhile, and putting very intentional effort around how you're building out that new logo engine outside of your network as a founder, because that does not live on beyond you when you go to sell the business. And that's important for buyers who want to think about the future growth of the business. So build your organic growth engine. I think secondly, tied to that is the founder centrality. Is your business totally rotating around an access point that is you, or do you have strong managers? It doesn't mean you have a 10-person management team. Most independent MSPs aren't at a size that would support that. But do you have a really good operations leader or amazing, service desk leader? Whoever, having 1 or 2 people outside of you that can run the day-to-day business that allow you to take vacation for real is important. And I think on the customer side, there's a couple of key things that have become very prevalent in the last couple of years. One is customer concentration. That whale customer is always attractive from growing your business. Sometimes it doubles people's business when you sign that customer. It also, 100x's the risk of your business from a buyer's perspective. Having that one customer that is, 30, 40, 50+% of your revenue and probably more, a higher percentage of the profit is just a huge risk. And it's going to be an issue when you go to sell. And so thinking about blending that down over time. I think secondly would be, if you have a customer base, and you can't always control this, but that is getting disrupted and that there is a ton of M&A. So thinking, spaces like healthcare, accounting, financial services generally, there's as much M&A happening in those industries as there is in ours. If you really do have a 3 to 5 year timeline, start diversifying out of those industries, because the churn risk is uncontrollable when most of your customers are, independent practices or firms that are going to sell to a larger one that either, has in-house IT or an incumbent provider. And again, it's not your fault, but if you were to focus on something for the next couple of years, it'd be, I'd say, work on diversifying out of that so you have a more stable customer base.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because it doesn't happen overnight, right? That's why you
No,
got to get
it
started
does not.
today. Okay. Well, we've been talking about organic growth a lot. I feel like it's come up from all three of you at some point during this live stream. So, Craig, the next question's for you, sir. When we talk about things that you're passionate about this channel, we know that you have a lot of zest and a lot of, you have a lot of relationships that you've established through the years through the MSP channel. What is one thing that you are passionate about when it comes to organic growth? Like what's one piece of advice you would give to sellers?
Yeah, there's a theme here, and it's not on purpose. It's get that sales engine going in the company. I'll come back to there's a lot of technical leaders out there, but with that, there's a lot of founder-led sales, and that's okay. That got you here. But if you're looking for a bigger return in your business, growing that sales engine, hiring a great business development leader into the company, investing in that is going to have a higher return than acquiring another company. That's just straight facts. But I get it, right? When I tell business owners this, they're like, "Oh, that's a lot of work." There's this mentality of it's just easier to buy it. And I'm telling you, the people that have gone through it will say, "Nope, it's not. Integrating businesses is hard. There's egos, there's personalities, there's insecurities, there's culture clashes, there's all kinds of things." And then, it's wild because the very first session I ever taught in my previous job was on sales management. And I joke all the time, I could repeat that session probably until I'm done. And it's because
Wait, is it the greatest hits of Craig Fulton? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I mean, it would actually be the greatest hits of Arnie and Craig because we used to kind of tag team that. And I know he would be like, "Man, we've talked about this enough," and I'd say, "No, we haven't." It's the hardest thing to do in every business we see, and so I'll give a little takeaway here. If you're thinking about doing this, invest in good talent. There's a lot of resources out there to help you understand how to hire great talent. But before you hire great talent, you have to put sales management in place. Where I see people fail all the time is, I'm going to hire great sales talent, and they do. And we have this kind of like running thing saying that you will fire your first salesperson within a year. And what we see happen there is they hire the salesperson, they say, "Look at this company you get to sell for," and they think they're doing some great service to this person. You get to define all of that on your own. Look at the empowerment you get here. That's what fails. What works every time is first design your sales process. When this person comes in, how are they going to fill the funnel? How are they going to work down through it? How are they going to quote? How are they going to hand that off to the service delivery team? How are you going to manage this person? What's the weekly sales meeting going to look like? What are the KPIs you're going to track? And how are you going to compensate them? How are you going to incentivize them to make sure you're hitting your goals, right? And I would just pro tip, click like, subscribe for more of these. You want to incentivize MRR growth. It is easy to sell things, features and functions. It is harder to sell outcomes to a business, and managed services is an outcome to a customer, right? Managed services for that customer is growth, competitiveness, resiliency, right? Technology enabling that in their company. You got to get business development people that can sell that.
Okay, awesome. Well, we only have a minute left, but I'll tell you what, I want to get your input here, folks. Are you good with going a minute or two over? Because we're getting some questions now from the audience, and I wanted to get those up if we could to answer them. Is everybody good?
That's my fault. I ran a little over on that one.
I'm good. I just have one addition to what Craig said,
Okay.
which is that the best part about the organic growth system and like defining a sales process is it's simple. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Like, it's a simple process. The tough part is it's tedious, and it requires a lot of discipline and sticking to it every week and monitoring weekly activity. And if you get off course, changing course. it's simple, but it's hard because it's tedious, is what I would say.
You know what I'll say to that, and the audience will get a laugh out of this. The engineers get such a bad rap for not entering their time and their notes. Salespeople, we got break on them harder. They
So true.
Not in the CRM, it didn't happen.
That's right. Oh, hallelujah. Okay, so we have a question from the audience. And so the question is, do you see a distinction in the valuations of MSPs that are more business outcome focused as a value proposition relative to MSPs that are more focused on the technology stack and service delivery? Who wants to take this one? Ramsey, go for it.
The answer is yes. Sometimes you get questions like this. Like the answer is yes, because of the financial results that an outcome-driven MSP achieves. It's not by virtue of just the mentality of being an outcome-driven MSP. Sydney mentioned a couple of our businesses in Australia and New Zealand that are exceptional at this. The way it's manifesting is fast organic growth at scale. Like you're talking 20 to 30% organic growth in a business of scale.
Wow.
Because they're coming to the market with a differentiated value proposition. They're really understanding their client's business. So they'll get a new customer, and that customer will spend a lot more with them over time because they see value that they're providing in their business. So yes, it's more valuable. It's more valuable if it's executed and translating into financial performance and organic growth in the business. And we see that somewhat rarely, but when we do see it.
I think that's what's key is your business outcomes will be better if you care about the business outcomes of your customers. Like the way this world is going is that you have to use technology to help drive better businesses for your customers. And that means understanding them. If you've seen Craig or Ramsey or myself do our kind of P&L management session, it's all about, what Ramsey just said. Your customers will spend more if you are making their business better. And I think historically, the idea has been, our job as an MSP is to fix tech issues. It doesn't really matter what the end customer is doing themselves. But I think that is an important shift, because if you understand what they are trying to accomplish and tailor your service offering to make that happen, then your outcomes are better.
All right.
And I think the tech stack is a means to an end. Like you got to have the right tech stack, but that's what's helping you do that at the end of the day.
One thing I want to add too is I've said this to people too, and they're like, well, how am I supposed to understand all these customer businesses? Use AI. It'll tell you all about your customer's business and help you.
Is that because I just put Jessica Davis's
Oh, no.
You're like, hey, no, I'm just kidding, Craig. I'm just messing with you.
No,
But this is a good one too. So I feel like you were hitting on this earlier, Sydney, on how different MSPs within Evergreen are leveraging AI. So yeah, I guess the question is, and you can take this, or who else wants to take it? You can all take it if you want. How is Evergreen helping the MSPs you acquire stay ahead with AI in ways they may not be able to do on their own? So what's your take on that, Sid?
Yeah, and I definitely want Ramsey's take on this as well. I mean, I think when you boil it down, we have both the scale and the capital to invest a lot of time and money into this that an independent business probably doesn't. And so I think it's going to take some of that. I think our model is uniquely set up such that we have a lot of different independent businesses. And so we're running 5-10 different experiments at a time with different products, with different service offerings, with different internal automations to figure out what really works. Like I said, we're early in the space. I don't think we know what the one right answer is. There's a lot of different tools. There's going to be a lot more tools next year. And so we are consistently trying a number of different things and then sharing that across our entire portfolio. What's working? How do we implement that at other businesses? And then I think, as we head into next year, there'll be more efforts, focused on kind of really, really building out more AI functionality across our portfolio as well.
Yeah, what I would say is, one, I'd echo what Sydney said. We have 100 companies tackling this, and I think that's such an incredible position to be in versus having to make one or two key decisions on AI throughout the course of the year, and you might be right or you might be wrong, and it's moving so fast and there's no way to adapt. So we have the opportunity for each of our companies to try things with AI. So that's kind of the breadth, and we have over 90% of our companies, I think, are leveraging AI tools in their business in some way. So that's the breadth. And then we have some companies that are going really deep and really rebuilding their business from the ground up. And that's shown up in a couple ways. We have one MSP that has gone really deep with thread and chat-based support and tickets to get resolved without a human touching them. And they're achieving 10% of their tickets are being closed without a human in the loop. And so they're going really deep on that. And then, you know, as we look ahead, we can attract talent into businesses that I think the individual MSP would struggle to attract, and really rebuild an individual business from the ground up in an AI native way. So that's kind of the depth part of our AI strategy, which is find a few leaders that are inspired to do something maybe a little more radical in their business as far as transforming it with AI. And that's something we can do because we can do it at an individual operating company instead of across the entire platform and take a big risk like that. So those are kind of the two prongs to it. There's breadth of experimentation and there's depth of doing, taking radical action in a couple operating companies where the leaders are wanting to do that.
One of the things that Craig was talking about at the beginning of the show was data insights is going to be a theme on the show. To your point, Ramsey, we have over 100 MSPs that we can leverage that data from to kind of see and test and see what's happening within our own internal, controlled environment. And so what I love is, as we have new revelations coming into 2026, we can bring those to you here on the show. Let's go ahead. I know we're a few minutes over. I'd love to end the show on a high note. It's the holiday season. We're all getting ready to go sip on some eggnog in a few weeks and hang out with our family and friends. I'd love to hear, what is a holiday tradition that each one of you looks forward to every year? Craig, let's go ahead and start with you. What's something that you're looking forward to this year?
Well, I do the elf on the shelf thing, but then I take it a little far, like I do with everything.
No,
I have a life-size elf on the shelf called Dingleberry. If someone's tuned in here and you want to see something wild, go to YouTube and search Florida Man Elf on the Shelf, and you will be pleasantly surprised. Hopefully laugh. That's my thing.
Okay. What about you, Ramsey? What's one thing you look forward to?
So my family, we get lox and bagels every Christmas morning. Vicky and I were joking. My 2.5-year-old daughter actually loves lox, believe it or not. So she likes it more than the bagel and the cream cheese. So that's our Christmas tradition. And you brought up eggnog. I forgot eggnog was a thing. I'm so excited for it to become a thing for the next few weeks here. All
right. Awesome. And what about you, Sydney?
We, on Christmas Eve, we make homemade pasta every year, which is always fun activity and tastes really good. So looking forward to that.
I love it. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you guys, one of the things I'm running into with my 6-year-old is he has been told that Santa is not real at school. So I bought a Santa outfit for my husband to put on, and we're going to catch him on one of our cameras outside on Christmas Eve, and that we can replay in the morning and say, oh, look, there he was. Oh my gosh, he showed up. So I'll report back and let you know how that goes. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today for the inaugural episode for Evergreen Pathways. Make sure to come back and join us, though. On January 15th is going to be our next show, our first show of 2026, where we're going to be bringing in some of our very own leaders within Evergreen and Lyra Technology Group as well. And Martin DeRose is going to be joining us for that first episode. He's our Canadian regional CEO for the Lyra Technology Group. So we look forward to seeing and hearing his insights of how he was able to make his path into Evergreen, and we'll tie that into the vision and the mission here. So thanks again, Ramsey, Sydney, Craig. I hope you all have an amazing holiday season. And for everybody tuning in, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thanks, Vicki.
Thanks.